Thank you for watching our video. This show is sponsored by DreamStream. DreamStream is a unique platform where creators can monetize their video content. All creators rely on support from people like you. Join us on the DreamStream platform to support your favorite creator and view the episode without any adverts. Follow the link in the description for a how-to guide. DreamStream, a place where you can create yourself.
A warm welcome to another episode of The Real Queer Talk with myself, Tolo Mtaung. And today we are looking into overcoming adversities. I mean, people who identify as lesbian, gay, transgender, and those that are still questioning often face a social stigma and also discrimination and other challenges not really encountered by people that we call straight, who are basically heterosexual. So they also face a greater risk of harassment and also violence as a result of this and other stressors. Sexual minorities are at the risk, or rather increased risk for that matter, for various behavioral health issues such as substance abuse. And this has been an experience with our guest who went through all of these, but was also able to overcome all of that. And today, I am joined by Mario Vee. Mario Vee is a celebrity makeup artist whose passion and skill has basically taken Mario all over the world, particularly in the African continent, working with different celebrities such as household names such as Black Coffee. And Mario is also a queer activist. Mario, thank you for making time to join us and welcome to the Queer Talk, Real Queer Talk for that.
Absolutely a pleasure being here with you this afternoon, morning, and it's wonderful just being in your space.
Yeah, I always appreciate when a person makes time to come speak to me, because when we are here, it's not only about having a conversation, but it's also about educating other people. And you have such an interesting life story, I must say, that I thought if we have a conversation about it, there's so much that perhaps we can learn out of it. Perhaps take us back, to your childhood. How early in your life did you realize that you're different?
Wow. Right. So once again, it's absolute pleasure to be here. So I basically knew I was different from the time I could actually think for myself, right?
Yeah.
From the time I could actually start walking. And I come from a very huge family, also very staunch Christian. My dad is a pastor, my mom an evangelist. So I also have 6 sisters and a brother. So they also, I wouldn't say I was, because a lot of people also ask me the question is, because you had so many sisters, because you grew up with so many sisters, is that the reason why you're gay? I'm like, no.
Assumptions.
Right?
Yeah.
I definitely knew from a very young age I was different, and I loved being different. Different was me, and I embraced my individuality. And I just ran with it.
Yeah. And what is your pronoun?
To be quite honest with you, I don't really have a pronoun. I go with whatever people feel comfortable with calling me. I actually prefer V, but I'm actually more comfortable with what people are actually comfortable with calling me, especially in their space.
Yeah, and it makes sense, really. I had guests last week, and what we spoke about as we speaking about pronouns was sometimes you find yourself, like myself. I find myself, like myself and find myself. Oh my word. Okay, but I find myself in a situation where you speak to a person and they address you as a she. Sometimes you speak to a person, they address you as a he, right?
Right.
And it's really about how people experience you most of the time. So we shouldn't really box ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. And that works perfectly for me.
Yeah. And your family background, it sounds like you had a big family, and which is what I like. I think growing up alone has always, made me wonder, what is it like, being in a big family where you have sisters and brothers around you, of course, with your parents as well?
Well, for me, it was overwhelming to an extent where I was very sheltered. I am the youngest.
Oh.
Yes, and my parents also had me very late. So my sisters were already in their adolescence, almost adults. And by the time I was actually conceived, I already did have nieces and nephews, by the way. So my sisters already had kids, and there I came along. So I was very sheltered, somewhat very, I wouldn't say very spoiled, but very, my parents also weren't really with the times, I would say. So I could get away with anything and everything.
And you were not spoiled.
Right? Sort of.
Just right there.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did basically get whatever I wanted, but there were limits
Yeah.
to it. Definitely were limits. Yeah.
How strict were your parents, though?
Very, very strict. My dad was a pastor and my mom an evangelist. So everything was centered around church, everything was centered around Christianity. And we basically had to also live our lives through the eyes of the church. So we had to basically watch every step that we took. So it was very, very difficult. So yeah, but we managed to overcome it.
So here you are, still young, and you realize that you're different, right? How do you deal with that? Was it challenging for you, or you found yourself finding it easier to perhaps understand who you are and the kind of life you want to lead?
But it was very challenging, extremely challenging at first, especially in society. Having to try to find your identity, find your place within society. And also being in the church and with everybody just looking at you, and now you're a pastor's son, you are now coming out into the world as a homosexual guy, and it was daunting. But with the support of, I had a great support system, especially my parents. My dad was great. So I managed to overcome, even though there were lots of obstacles that led to the position where we actually got to sit down with my dad and actually have that and unpack basically, and just for him to understand who I really am. And that was very heartwarming, and he was very accepting of everything.
And how difficult was that moment of having to chat with him about you and how you expect perhaps then them to understand you?
Right. Well, my dad was very, very understanding. He was the one that we could all go to. He was the one that we could all just go and have a conversation with. My mom was very strict. She would actually talk with her slipper first and then talk with her mouth. So we were very afraid of my mom. She was a no, she didn't take any bullshit, if I have to put it out that way. So yeah, so when the day I actually sat with my dad, he actually knew, because our parents definitely do know.
I always say that. They
Yeah,
always know.
they're actually
can
more in
tell
denial
from
than
the
we are.
youngest age ever,
Right?
they can tell.
Yes. So they definitely did know. My mom was just in denial. So by the time I actually expressed who I was to my dad, it was like, okay, I was just waiting for you to say it.
Just a confirmation.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was great.
Interesting. And it's lovely when you have a supportive family, particularly when you come growing up in an environment where you're not only church people, but because your father is a pastor, there's sort of some kind of an expectation, right, that you have to live up to a certain standard. And obviously with religion, particularly Christianity, being interpreted as that when you are a homosexual person, it's a sin, right?
Right.
And this is a topic for another day. How important was it for you to have your family supporting you as the person that you are?
Right. Well, at first, to be quite honest, back then, homosexuality was very taboo, and it wasn't very spoken about. So people they really shied away from the topic. So because of the close-knitted family and the environment that I came from, it was very warm. We could really communicate. My sisters were very protective. So the community, even though the community, you're afraid to express yourself to the community, my sisters actually sheltered me.
Yeah.
So by the time I was ready to step out into society, my sisters had already expressed it to the world. So their friends knew about it, and everything just started unpacking from there. And with that being said, I don't think I would have been able to have done it without the support of my family, especially with the church, always ready to point fingers. And that is another reason why we actually stay away from the church, because to a certain extent, the church actually pushed me away. And if it wasn't because of my family, I don't think I would still be grounded in Christ right now.
Yeah, amazing. So you grow up and now you face life on your own, without parents being there, without your siblings being there. And some of the challenges that you came across, of course, is finding yourself, abusing or using substances. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right. So growing up, I always wanted to be accepted, basically, well, because I didn't have friends, because I was so sheltered. My parents kept me away from the public, especially because I was bullied throughout my childhood. So they kept me away from the streets, basically. So when I did eventually become almost an adult, I needed to start venturing out. And I started experimenting with weed. And then it escalated from there. And basically, I'd actually experimented with substances also just to be accepted. And it also gave me the false sense of friendships, because we all just found these cliques. And that's when it all began. And to a certain extent, it also gave me a false sense of confidence, also a false sense of peace. It allowed me to step out into society confidently, boldly, and yet it was just all a facade. It was just the substance that was doing it for me.
Yeah, sure. I have not used it, right? And I always wonder the feeling that you get at that point, and then thereafter, and wanting to go back again, and eventually finding yourself right deep in it.
Right.
Take us through that journey.
So yeah, so at first it was just to play around with. And it also, like I just mentioned, it gave me that confidence that I needed. It also allowed me to express myself differently and boldly. And by the time I had realized I needed to stop what I was doing, it was literally too late. I was now in addiction, and I couldn't stop. I actually needed it to function. I needed it to get me out of bed, basically.
Yeah.
It controlled me. It controlled my life, and it just took over. And I'd also just reached that point of rock bottom.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what made you realize that, oh no, now I'm like rock bottom. I need to get out of this.
Right. So it was actually starting to mess with my career. It was also starting to mess with my health, my mental state of mind. I also reached a point where I was not even remembering anything.
Sure.
Yes, and I could be on the phone with someone now, and then minutes later I was like, who was I chatting to? I used to forget very
Gets to that
easily.
point.
Yes, it was very bad. And the point that actually, my turning point was when I'd never forget that night. I came back from a club, and it had consumed me by then. It was in my blood. It was in my veins. I could taste it. I could see it. And I knew if I had continued that day, it was going to be the last. And there was just this voice that kept on telling me and kept on reminding me of who God is, and why I'm here, and my purpose. And that God will never leave me. He'd never forsake me. And He's taken me through every trial and tribulation. And this was something that He is definitely going to carry me through. And I'd dusted the drugs off my phone, and I just cried out to God. Wow. Because even there were moments, even when I was high, I was even asking God, why? Why am I doing this? You know, every line that I took, even halfway through taking a line, I would say, Lord, why? I just need this to stop, but I could not. And that day I cried out, and God heard. And He heeded to my voice.
Need a photo studio? The DreamStream Photo Studio includes a 2.7-meter PVC backdrop in black and white and is available for only 115 rands per hour. You can also rent a Canon R6 and lights. All rentals are for studio use only. Terms and conditions apply. Contact studio at dreamstream.co.za.
Thank you, Ben, for coming out tonight. My name is Son of Augustine.
And it was a struggle getting off the drugs. It was the most difficult year of my life, having to redefine who I was, having to redefine my identity, because that was the first time I actually stood in front of the mirror and allowed myself to accept myself for who I was without the drugs. And I needed to find the confidence and the boldness to step out into society on my own without using a substance. And I called on my higher power and I asked God to guide me. And each and every step that I took, He did just that.
Wow. This is so deep and profound at the same time, especially when you talk about having to talk to God when you are high, and that breaking moment where you then reached out to God. Because many a times would think that because you're high on drugs, you just want the feel-good effect, and you think about going to a party. Other people go for sex, and it's different things, right? So now, do you then take this journey alone? Do you go out to seek help for you to be able to go through it? How did that unfold?
Okay, so my addiction did start much earlier on. Yes, I did go to a rehabilitation center, which my parents actually sent me to, I was quite young, much younger then, and my parents did send me to a rehabilitation center. And I wouldn't say the rehabilitation center did not help. Yes, it did. However, when I did come out of rehab, I relapsed.
Oh,
Like within a week.
okay. that was a short time.
Yes. And when I had decided to actually do this for myself, because for anybody that's in addiction, no matter which addiction it is, you've got to want it. You've got to actually want the change. So your parents, your husband, your wife, or fiance, nobody's going to have to force you to go into a rehabilitation center and get the help. You'll never get the help if you don't go there yourself, and if you don't long for the help. So when I stopped on my own, I wanted the help. I wanted to change. I wanted to do it for myself. And whatever I learned, or whatever they guided me, the life skills that I took from the rehabilitation center applied to my life then. And it worked.
Amazing. So you spoke about bullying, which contributed to you finding yourself in a position of using drugs. What kind of situations did you had to endure of bullying that you came across?
Well, that happened, I think, like from grade R all the way through to grade 12, for being different, for being feminine, being called Morphe, a faggot. It was just a lot. And I'd also reached a point in my life where nothing people said affected me anymore, because I had actually trained and that was mainly because of my dad.
Okay.
And my dad always told me, no matter what people may say about you, or what people may think about you, you are made in the image and likeness of God.
Yeah.
And irrespective of what people are going to say or think about you, always know that you have a family and you have God that loves you unconditionally. And that was my driving force. He'd always tell me, even there were moments where he'd always tell me, you're unblemished.
Wow.
He'd always tell me that, and God sees that. So no matter what people say about you, you are unblemished in the eyes of God. And that was when I just blocked out everything people said, the bullying, the name calling, and all of that. And I just lived my life.
Yeah. So when they were bullying you, saying all those names, how would that make you feel at that point, before getting to a point where you were able now to block all of that noise out? How would that make you feel and even make you think about yourself?
Yeah, you become very doubtful, hateful towards yourself. You think of suicide lots of times. Why are you here? Isolating yourself. At some point I became an introvert.
Yeah.
I didn't even want to go to school. And yeah, it was daunting, where you don't want to basically see anyone. You don't even want to live your life. You just wanted it to end. And you'd even ask yourself, you'd ask God, why me? You know, why me? And yeah, it was one of the most traumatic experiences of my life.
Did you experience it from your age group or even people that are older?
In school, yes, kids can be very nasty.
Yeah, they can. I know,
Right.
tell me about it. They can.
Yeah, so in school, yes, I did. And then surprisingly enough, in my adolescence, and especially when I was coming out basically into society, I experienced it more from the church. Yeah, I got it more from there.
Sure. What was your coming out?
My coming out, my coming out was basically for me to accept myself. That is what I wanted, because I was finding it very difficult to accept who I was. And that was also based on society and the way they looked at me, and because they didn't want to accept me. So I kept on reminding myself, because I'm going to go back to my dad again.
Yeah.
You're engineered by God for success. And that was my affirmation every day. So I used to look at myself in the mirror, and I used to just remind myself that I was engineered by God for success. And I'm just going to have to live my life the way God had planned. But even though I had made bad choices and decisions, I basically remember that I kept on telling myself it's not the end.
Yeah.
It's not the end. And I wanted more for myself then. It's just that opportunities didn't allow it. So I had to just go roll with what was offered at that point.
Yeah. And despite all these challenges, you found your passion in the beauty industry.
Yes, I
It has
did.
been 18 years.
Right.
Where did it start? How did it start?
Well, back to my family again.
Yeah.
Because my mom she loved makeup. She loved dressing up. So I would always watch her in the mornings and putting on a hat for church, putting on her makeup. And then her style and sense of dressing and all of that was passed over to my sisters. So then I was the youngest in the house. And I just had all these women around me, and all of them were just painting their faces, and I loved it. And I'd never forget, I was in grade 10, and I used to do a lot of different productions in school, so we were part of the ballet. So a friend of mine said to me, hey, help me put on my makeup. We're late. And I picked up a brush, and I helped her with her mascara. And I was like, I can do this.
So there was a special connection with you and the brush right there.
Yes. And everything for me at that point came naturally. I just fell in love with making. Also, the way she felt at that point, because she was also like, wow, that point, that actually done something for me spiritually. I loved from that point making girls look amazing. And that's when it all began.
Okay. So you got into the beauty industry. You never looked back. What has been the highs and lows, particularly as a queer person in that space?
Right. As you do know, the beauty industry is our thing.
Without question.
Right? So I wouldn't say there were any lows.
Yeah.
Yes, there were lots of challenges from where I was coming from in my community, because I come from a community where there was very little opportunity.
Okay.
And I did go on to study cinematology, and I did my higher education in makeup artistry and prosthetics, and I needed to leave KZN and my parents also did not want me to study beauty.
Okay.
It was like, now you're going to be screaming to the world that you're gay.
Oh, okay.
Right? So eventually I did. And I completed my makeup diploma and my cinematology, and I moved to Johannesburg for better opportunity. And I worked as a beautician at first. And then I had my first big break, and I worked as a makeup artist. And I worked for a studio, and then from there I did makeup for TV, music videos. I met all my celebrity clients, and things had just escalated from there. To be quite honest with you, when it comes to the lows, I don't really have any. Yes, it was challenging to get in. That I would say was my only low, but the rest was basically hard work, diligence, and believing and trusting in your ability to do what you know you can. Because for me, being an artist, a makeup artist back then, it was about tapping into my creative energy and my creative side. And it wasn't just about putting makeup on somebody's face. It was more so about how did I make them feel when I was in their space. And that's what was most important for me. I just wanted women and men to look amazing, yet also feel it. That is it.
And then you opened an academy.
Yes. Okay, so then I did facilitate for different beauty academies. I was a head makeup artist at quite a few makeup academies. And then I opened up my own, beauty academy, Unblemished Beauty Makeup and Nail Academy. And
is the name coming from
yes,
Dad's?
my dad.
Oh.
Yeah. When I was thinking of a name for Unblemished Beauty, everything just made sense.
So beautiful, though.
He always reminded me that I was unblemished in the eyes of God, and that, it was amazing, and it was just fitting that I would use that name, because even when you apply makeup on somebody's face, you apply it to a point where you're actually unblemished, and that's when the name just resonated with me, and so then I opened Unblemished Beauty Makeup and Nail Academy.
So what do you do there exactly?
Right, so just a little bit of why I opened. I wanted to give young girls and boys an opportunity. Well, the opportunities that I've had opportunities to go to the best schools. And I wanted to give, especially in the economy and the state that we're currently in right now, I wanted to give people an opportunity to have affordable education, but quality education. People think that going into beauty is just for somebody who's not academically smart. Yet, I think everybody right now knows that the beauty industry is a $7 trillion business.
It's a lot of money.
Right? And
very lucrative.
Absolutely. And why not beauty? You can travel anywhere in the world and still work. You can live anywhere and still work. You can even work from home and make very good money. So the idea behind Unblemished Beauty was to give these young girls and boys opportunities, and great opportunities to become beauty moguls, become business owners. And that's what it was all about.
Amazing stuff. And you're so passionate about empowering other people. What drives that when perhaps you look at your life and who you are? Why do you think you're so passionate about empowering other people and making sure that you are always there, even to support those that are in unfortunate circumstances? Because I know your academy even goes out in communities where there is lack, and you just make a positive difference rather in those spaces.
Right. So the reason I honestly do that is because I know the struggles of life. I know what it is to not have. I know what it is to lack. And I also know what it is for people to not be there. And you know, when you need that shoulder and you need someone to talk to, someone to just to give you a warm hug. Yes. I know what it's like to not have that. And I wanted to be there for the person that I wanted there for me. So I wanted just to also to inspire others to actually also to do. We're not all called for the same purpose in life, But if we can change one person's life, for me, if I can do that, I think I've done my work.
Yeah.
Right? I've been reading a book for the longest time, and from William Butler Yeats, and in his book, I would quote it, and it always said, "In dreams come responsibilities."
True.
And for me, my dream was always to inspire, uplift, motivate, and also give back. And with the responsibility it brings, I cherish that in some small way I would make a difference
Yeah.
and change the lives of others. And I believe that God had given me this platform, Unblemished Beauty, to do just that, to change lives and to inspire young women and young men to get up and do more for themselves. That's what it's about.
Beautiful. Beautiful. You have so much grit and resilience, and it's unbelievable given the kind of challenges you've gone through in life, because it really is unbelievable. Where does it come from? I mean, you could have turned out to be somebody who's bitter, somebody who doesn't care about other people, but there is that resilience that you keep going and you keep overcoming and you keep achieving.
Right. To be quite honest with you, it's back to home, back to where it all began, and it's back to God.
Yeah.
And I'm nothing without God. I'm not, where I am today is nothing. I couldn't have gotten to this position without Him, without the prayer of my parents
Yeah.
and my family. Also, I have a very, very good support system at Unblemished Beauty. I have a great, amazing team of young ladies who support me. It actually is very emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we fight a lot. We have our ups and downs, but I have amazing girls behind me, because if it wasn't for them, I actually wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah.
I have a great support.
Amazing. And what does the future look like for Mario?
I have so much that I'd love to
marriage,
do.
kids,
No,
and-
definitely no kids. I think if I do have kids, they'd have to be well potty trained. Yeah, so maybe in future I would definitely consider having a child.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm definitely branching out now into Durban. I am in preparation of expanding my business in Durban. We have already started the groundwork.
Okay.
So I've now getting ready to go bigger. The demand is great in Durban. So I'm definitely expanding. I want to see more beauty academies around in different provinces. I want to also focus more with GBV.
Okay.
I want to also tap into that, because I'm also within the LGBT. I also want to find myself in the GBV space, where I am now meeting lots of women who are coming from that walk of life, who have also given up and are not really finding their purpose.
Yeah.
So I want to be there just to remind them of who God is
Yeah.
and why we're here.
Mario, thank you so much for making time to join us. It has
Absolutely
been
a pleasure.
such an inspirational talk that I've had with you, and wishing you all the best with all the endeavors that you get involved in, particularly the Unblemished Beauty. May it grow from strength to strength, from one province to the continent to the world.
Right?
Hey?
Yes, honey.
Thank you so much. That is Mario Vee. Quite an inspiring conversation we've had with Mario, and I believe that you have taken something out of it, something to inspire you in life, something to show you that it doesn't matter what people think about you. What matters is what do you think about yourself, and what is it what purpose God has for you in life. So to wrap up today, myth and fact, right, around the queer community as a whole. Myth that I have and heard before is identifying as LGBTQI plus is a mental illness. Shocking, especially if you're queer. So research has shown that being a queer person is a natural variation of human diversity, which is something that we have to accept. Although homosexuality was classified as a mental illness in the past due to social prejudices, medical and mental health communities have actually removed and rejected this classification over time. So that is basically how we're wrapping up this episode, and look out for another interesting one that is coming up next.